Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's K-E-S-H-W-A-N-I, Keshwani. I have been solving math problems for GMAT out of this book here, the GMAT Review, the official guide. If you do not own this book already, and if you're thinking about studying for GMAT, purchase this book immediately. You will find it at mba.com. This is where you want to practice from. The problem that I'm about to solve is the one that you will find on page number 181. Problem solving number 212. Let's take a look at it. We are given three sets of data, three data sets. I have put them already here on the blackboard. And the question simply is, the data sets 1, 2, 3 above are ordered from the greatest standard deviation to the least standard deviation in each of the following. In other words, they're giving you the order of these three sets there from, and our job is to find a scenario where the standard deviation is greatest to the least. Well, let's take a look at it. First of all, what's the standard deviation? I hope you know this because, by the time you get into 212, we're dealing with hard problems now because there are 250 problems, and of course in the real exam it doesn't work that way because you're not taking a paper and pencil exam. Those good old days are gone. You're taking computer adaptive exam where they start you out with the medium, and depending on how you do in the first two or three questions, they adjust the difficulty of the question. If you get all of the medium questions right in the beginning, the first 2 or 3 questions, you're given some medium hard questions, and if you begin to get those right, they give you the hard questions. And of course, your job in the real exam is to answer as many hard questions as you can for in the given amount of time that you have there, 37 questions, 75 minutes, and whatever it is. But here in this book, there are 250 questions, and generally speaking, this does not hold all the time, but generally speaking, loosely speaking, the 250 questions, the first 50 questions are easy. The next 50, think of this on a scale of 1 through 5. So the last 50 questions in this book there are 250 problem solving questions, and the same will apply to the data sufficiency. The last 50 questions are not supposed to be that easy. So by the time you get to this thing, it's for the people who are shooting for a score of 650, 700 in that range. Anyway, having said all that, so I hope that you know what standard deviation is. Standard deviation basically is a measurement of how much a given observation deviates from the average of the series. It's a deviation from the average. The higher the standard deviation, the more dispersion that we have from the average. If you look at the three data set here, you should be able to spot right away one data set where there is absolutely no variation from the mean. The data set is 2. The average here is 74, and everything is 74. The standard deviation in this case is absolute 0. It does not deviate at all. Because that's what standard deviation measures. It measures the dispersion around the mean. Well, there is no dispersion here. Everything is 74, which tells me that since we are arranging it from the greatest standard deviation to the lowest standard deviation, that tells me that the correct answer, whatever it is got to have 2 at the very end. I don't know what's going to be in the second place, and I don't know what's going to have the greatest standard deviation yet, but 2 has to be in the last place because that has the lowest standard deviation. It has a standard deviation of 0. What I'm trying to point out here is that there are 2 ways of taking the exam, not just this question, in the whole exam. There are 2 ways of taking the exam, as I have said many times if you watch my previous clips. There are 2 ways of taking not only this exam again, any standardized exam anywhere in the world for anything at all. There are 2 ways of taking a standardized exam. One is what I call taking the exam like a geek, like a freak, like a nerd, in a classical way, in the traditional way, in the orthodox way, where you sit there and solve every question in a proper way. And the other one is what I call the quick and dirty way, where you think. It's about thinking. It's not about doing the math. The purpose of the exam is not about showing how much math you know. They just want to know how quickly you can think. Hence the 2 minutes per question. So don't try to sit there and actually figure out the standard deviation of all of these things. That will take you too long. Just look at it. The standard deviation in number 2 is 0. It has 0 standard deviation. That tells me that the correct answer, whatever it is, has to have 2 at the very end. Let's look at the answer choices. A, B, C, D, and E. This is how I take the exam. I cross out as many answer choices as quickly as I can, and then whatever is left over, we'll worry about that in a second. A does not have 2 at the end. A has 3 at the end. That's no good. It says 1, 2, and 3. That's no good. B should work. B is a possible candidate. C is not a right answer because it has 2, 3 and 1. We already said that the lowest standard deviation is number 2. The 2 has to be in the position. And D is a possible candidate. And E is not going to work. E is 3, 2 and 1. We need 2 in the last position. So there you go. That's it. The contest is between B and D. That's all it is. So I'm going to erase the others. I'm just going to concentrate on what I need to concentrate on. So let's get rid of these. These are mumbo jumbo. That's it. You see? And this part that I just did, should take you no more than 10 seconds. Just look at it. Look at the bloody thing. It's all 74. The standard deviation is 0. And since you are arranging a standard deviation from the highest to the lowest, 2 has to be in the last position. And immediately, within seconds, you should be able to raise your odds to 50-50. And at that point, if you have the time, and if you know how to do it, and if you're in the mood, do the problem. If you have the time, if you know how to do it. If you don't have the time, or you don't know what else to do next, if it's taking you too long, just pick between the remaining 2 and move on with your life. Don't agonize over it. Your odds are in your favor. 50-50 odds is pretty good. Let's finish it up. Because this is where the things are going to get prickly. The part that I'm about to do is where the things are going to get prickly. So if you cannot replicate this, what I'm about to do on your own, just pick between the 2 and move on. So let's continue here. I'm going to pick this guy here. 62, 74, 74, 74, and 89. Since this is 74, this is 74, this is 74, how do I make this 74? Well, how do I make this 74 and how do I make this 74? If I add 12 to it, it becomes 74. And what is that 12 going to come from? It's going to come from this guy. I have to borrow 12 from this guy and give it to this guy. If I take away 12 from this guy, I end up with 77. But he needs to be 74. You see, if this, in other words, instead of, he's got 3 extra. Instead of 74, he's got 77. In other words, instead of this 89, had this been 86, the average would have been 74 of this series. I don't have to add up all 5 numbers and divide by 5 to figure it out, which is what most people do. They know the concept of average in the mechanical sense of the word, mechanical sense of the word, but they don't actually understand the concept of what it is. Everybody knows how to figure out the average. You simply add up the numbers and divide by numbers. But that's the mechanics. Do you understand the concept? For example, if I tell you, what is the average of these 5 numbers, are you able to tell me like that? And if you're not, if you're going to sit there and add all of the 5 numbers and divide by 5, that's nothing new. Everybody knows how to do that. But that's not the point of the exam. That is not the point of the question. So this guy has extra 3. In other words, had this been 86, how can I rewrite it so you can see it? You see it's 77. We need 74. He has 3 extra. This guy has 3 extra. Average is an look up this word and learn it. Egalitarian. E-G-A-L-I-T-A-R-I-A-N. Egalitarian. Average is an egalitarian concept where everybody is equal. In the village of average, it's a communist village. In the village of average, everybody is equal. Everybody has the same amount of money. So if somebody has more than what they're supposed to have, I'm supposed to take it away from them and give it to other guy. This guy has I want everybody to be 74. Well, this guy still has 3 more dollars. How do I divide 3 among 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? There are 5 people. So the average is 74 and I take the 3 extra dollars and divide among 5 people. That's it. That's the average of these 5 numbers. And when you take this average, subtract 62 from that, you take the difference and you square it, that's going to be a very large number. Same thing here. It's going to be 350 squared, 350 squared, 350 squared, then 89 minus 74 over 3/5. It's going to be some large number. When you square it, it's going to be a very large number. And this will have a very high standard deviation compared with this guy. The standard deviation here is going to be very simple. I'm not doing the actual formula, the whole formula of standard deviation, because the denominator doesn't matter. I'm just looking at the numerator here. You see this is 1 away from this guy and this is 1 away from this guy. You take the absolute value. So it's 1 squared, that's 1 plus 1 is 2. This guy is 2 away from this guy, so it's 2 squared. And this is 2 squared. The difference is 2. You square it. So 4 plus 4 is 8. Plus 1 is only 10. Whereas over here it's going to be quite a lot. This alone will give you a big difference. if you were to divide subtract 79 from, if you were to subtract 74 and 3/5 from 89, it's going to be some large numbers. It's going to be more than 10, and when you square it, of course, it's going to be more than 100. We just said here the standard deviation is around 10 divided by the number of numbers. So this guy has the highest standard deviation, which tells me that the correct answer, whatever it is, has to have 2 at the very end and 3 at in the very beginning, which tells me that number 1 has to go in the middle. This is the order I'm looking for. And let's see which one is that. 3 has the highest standard deviation. The answer choice is D. That's it. That's your answer. Let me look at the clock in the camera.